Welcome to the Northland Bassin Podcast with fishing guide John Myrie and bass tournament angler Ken Lindner. On the Northland Bassin Podcast, we cover everything bass fishing for both largemouth and smallmouth here in the Wisconsin Northland and all across the northern tier of Midwest states. Hello, folks. I'm John Myrie, and sitting here with a co-host of the podcast here, Ken Lindner. We're going to talk about, maybe some spring bass fishing. We're in the ice fishing right now, and people are out there ice fishing, but as soon as we get open water, Ken, we're going to have people out there can bass fish. I mean, it's year-round open catch and release now.
Yep, it sure is. And some of the best fishing can happen, just as the temperature starts to warm up in the spring.
Well, there's a big difference in fish location, too. And then everything will be pre-spawn, obviously. I mean, we're looking at maybe, third week of May before we get into spawn and stuff on the bass, either largemouth or smallmouth.
The smaller lakes can go opening weekend, and then, the bigger lakes will be in May sometime.
Yeah, you got to get that water temperature up. But right away, we're going to be looking at water temperatures in the 40s. And, these fish still could be pretty aggressive at that time, can't they?
Yep, they can.
Okay, let's start out with if you're going to go to a lake in the spring, a clear natural lake, for instance, and you want to go after largemouth. A lot of people right away are going to think we're going to go out in deep water for them, but that's not necessarily the case, is it?
When the water's in the 40s, you could probably start with a jig out deep, but as the weeds start producing oxygen, they'll suspend on the deep weeds, and then they'll go on the flats, and then on the inside weed lines. If you can get them going on the flats right near the inside weed line, it can be a lot of fun. When
do you expect to find them up, like up in lily pad flats sitting around the holes in the lily pads where the frost has pushed them up and, up really, really shallow?
Some lakes, they'll be 10 degrees warmer up in them flats way in the back ends, and the fish will go there a lot sooner than you'd really think. You just have to take some temperature ranges. If it hits 58, 59 degrees on the inside weed line, sometimes they'll be right on the bank.
Yeah, I suppose a nice warm sunny day is the key, because you'll get them fish going up real shallow, and it's like you could actually find them in a foot or two of water sometimes when you get that situation.
Or if you find a stump or a chunk of bog or some lily pad roots that the ice had busted apart, and the lily pad roots are sitting up and create little holes, they can be on that because it's like 3 to 4 degrees warmer.
Well, if we're not looking at that warmer yet right away, as soon as we can get out there after ice out, typically you're going to break down a lake and you're looking for the fish. What are you going to start looking for?
The biggest flat on the lake.
The big flats.
Yeah, because that holds the most bait. So you'll have perch and sunfish on it before they migrate into the shallows. And spinner baits and rattle traps and even jerk baits can be really, really good.
Is it near any creeks or anything, or just the flats you're looking for, big expansive flats?
Sometimes current on the back ends of some of these smaller bays can warm the water up quicker, but they don't necessarily like current like smallies do. But they'll go on the edges of the currents, on the eddies, off to the sides, 20 to 100 feet. Because there's a lot of minnows and stuff that'll be attracted to the current. And
we're going to talk smallies a little bit here, but I know smallies tend to bunch up a lot pre-spawn in big groups and packs. You see that with the largemouth too, or they more scattered around?
It seems like they will pack up on certain lakes on certain areas.
Every lake is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing is no consistency. When you're talking Northland Bassin up here, you've got flowages, reservoirs, you got rivers, you got clear water, you got stained water. We got such a wide selection. Stuff that we don't see down south. I mean, the southern guys don't have what we got up here. This clear water sometimes is a whole different animal to fish. Well, it always is a whole different animal to fish than some of the reservoirs, but our flowages here are maybe closer to what they got down there, too, I think.
Yeah, just our medium depth is a lot less than, what the southern boys fish. And, of course, the predator-prey relationship to what they're eating. Up here, you can follow... I always follow the perch for smallmouth and crawdads, depends upon the water temp, and then follow the sunfish for bass.
Yeah, well, your forage base, it's totally different. You get down south, and it's always going to be, shad-based most of the time.
Yeah.
Up here we don't have that, so I mean, they key in at certain times. They really get into the bluegills. I know.
Yeah, they do. Well, they follow them because it's an easy meal.
Yeah. Well, as far as baits and lures, right away after ice out, what do you recommend people try? I mean, I like things like, that I can move fairly quick to cover some water.
I do too. So I'll start on the edge of a weed line with a jerk bait. For smallies, you want to get on the flats even and throw swim baits, but primarily I'll throw a jig if they're not up feeding. You have to figure out if they're up feeding or if they're on the flats. Reaction baits. Chatterbaits work good. Spinner baits and rattle traps are the reaction baits that work really good. Up sometimes the 1.1 or 1.5 crankbaits can work really good too.
You mentioned crankbaits. Crankbaits seem to be almost a forgotten art with a lot of fishermen. They go to the big deals, the finesse baits and the plastics and spinner baits and stuff, but crankbaits can be really productive early in the year, especially if the fish are down along some shorter growing weeds. If they're in 10, 12, 14 feet of water and you got some short weed growth down there, you get a crankbait down there right over the top of that stuff. It can be pretty productive for both largemouth and smallmouth if they're there.
Well, Kevin Van Dam did really, really well. All he did was fish reaction baits almost every tournament.
Yeah, well, reaction baits allow you to go in and look for the one or two fish that you're going to get to snap at something. And like we mentioned about fish being potted up or in groups, you go back, there's always going to be some more fish in that area. And then you can, if you have to slow down and turn to more of a finesse presentation to try to extract a few more bites out of there.
Yeah, well, nowadays with live scope, they're going with finesse baits to the fish that are offshore. But, you go back in history, a lot of guys, use electronics and they fish, from the weed lines shallower.
Yeah. Well, the guys usually fishing with a live scope or forward facing sonar. I know that works really good off the breaks in the deeper water, but are they starting to do that up in 2, 3, 4 feet of water with that stuff too? Or is that pretty much more of a deeper water tool?
I think you spend too much time studying the topography of the bottom of the lake when you're fishing less than 10 feet up here. You'd be better off turning all your electronics off and just go fishing.
You can see most everything that you're fishing up here, especially in the Clearwater lakes.
Yeah.
And it's not like fishing the dirty water down south or the muddy water or even our stained water lakes here. You can't see a lot of that stuff too. But if you're fishing the Clearwater, your own eyes can basically tell you what's there a lot of times without having to worry about electronics.
Back in Minnesota, I did pretty good fishing the tournament circuits. I was angler of the other Silverado Pro Bass Tour, and all I had was a flasher, and a lot of times I'd even turn the flasher off because I didn't want no electronics, on the fish. So if you had 5 transducers going on your boat, and if you put a PCV pipe down in the water, it's pretty loud.
Yeah. Well, and the fish are getting harder to catch, whether it's bass or muskies or everything else, because of sheer pressure on them. And I've subscribed to the thought that these fish are not totally stupid. I mean, they learn survival and they avoid things. And I've watched too many fish with the live sonar, with a forward-facing sonar. I've watched too many fish definitely avoid. I mean, packs of panfish that were up high, when you get too close to them, a boat, they collapse into a ball and head for the bottom. I've watched fish scurry off in a hurry. And normally you watch a walleye swimming on the bottom and they're swimming along fairly slow, or a bass, and all of a sudden when they just bolt out of there like a streak, there's something spooked and they're out of there, and that, that's boat noise and any type of noise you're making. And sonar, I hear a lot of people say, well, they can't hear that. It's not in their auditory range, but it creates a sound wave. It creates a pulse. And I'm convinced that maybe they can't hear it wise as far as their hearing, but they can feel it.
Well, you think of it this way. You can be swimming a swim bait in pretty dirty water, and that fish will come from 30 feet away to get it. So with live target and all those forward-facing transducers, their beams are pretty tight. So for like Garmin at 60 feet, it's 22 feet. Of course, it changes its density.
The farther you get out, the less powerful it is. But in close, if you're 20 feet out, I mean, it's a lot of power going in the water, and it's a pressure wave. That's what I'm saying. When people talk about they can't hear it, but even if they couldn't hear it, that pressure wave, that wave, if you put your hand underneath these transducers, a lot of times you could feel that transducer pulsing. And everything in water travels 5 times faster than air and a lot farther.
Yeah, it does. So maybe they don't hear it. I think they do, because I have taken sinkers and packed them together and cracked them on rocks in the smallmouth. Here they come. I watch them on underwater camera. It's like, here they come. So I think they do hear, but it's their lateral line. Maybe that's what's picking it up. But, crawdads is a favorite food for all bass, and even sunfish will eat small ones. Yeah. So when the crawfisher is crawling on the bottom of the lake, like dragging a tube, I've watched them on Round Lake, and it's like, there ain't no way they're seeing my tube, but here they come. Here comes like 2 or 3.
So much has changed in that fishing world out there, and we're going to talk about a bunch of different stuff, But I had a chance last summer over to St Croix Rods, and I ran into a couple of friends of mine over there, Al Lindner and Jim Lindner, and I had a little conversation with them. We're talking about fishing and a lot of stuff on how stuff's changed, and they like bass fishing. I don't know, that's one of their favorite fish is bass, actually, and people think walleye, but I know both of them like to fish bass. They've won some tournaments, actually, but I had a chance to talk to them over there a little bit. I'm going to run that during the podcast here, and when we come back after that, we're going to be talking about maybe, looking for a new lake and some place you can find information as far as breaking down a lake and mapping and that stuff. So let's hear that one. We had an interview when I had a chance to talk to the Lindners over there, and we'll be back right after that.
Sounds good, John.
I was down at the St Croix Customer Appreciation Day, and I ran into a friend of mine I hadn't seen for quite a while. I ran into Al Lindner, and also ran into James there. Good to have you guys on here.
Hey, it's always good to be here. We've been doing this almost since day one. I think you may have been at all of them. I missed a couple, but it's always fun. It's one of the most fun things that we look forward to every year. Yeah, great turnout of people. You intermingle with every level of angler you can see. You're talking to pan fishermen, musky fishermen, smallmouth fishermen, bass fishermen, hardcore everything. It's a hodgepodge of what the sport fishing industry is made up of. Is all here. It's not all hardcore tournament guys. It's not all fanatic musky guys. It's the fishing industry family at all different levels. Families, kids. You have every degree of what you got in there, and it's rare to see that kind of interest at an event like this. You could do these seminars. We could be up there for 3 hours.
The interesting thing is, every year we come in, a lot of the same people are coming here year after year after year. We just spoke to some other gentlemen that are fishing tournaments over at Round Lake, and they're sharing they need some insight on what we should do right now. And it's sort of fun in the fact that, you know what I mean? That's where they have such a loyal following, the St Croix products as a whole, you know what I mean? And such really, really crafted rods and reels, no question about it. They're rods, the best rods on earth. Really, you know what? I think they are. I really do.
You can't argue with that logo. No.
It seems like this year was more people than I've ever seen here, too, and more people enthusiastic and more people buying stuff and doing stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of the sign of the times. There was a level of optimism, and, the fishing is pretty darn good. We're seeing what kind of interested me is the interest. A lot of people in panfish, we're talking about the perch and the bluegills and the crappies, and to see they're really interested in that. And when I talked to powers to be here at St Croix, they said the panfish rod sales in the last 5 or 6 years has skyrocketed. Now we've been pushing hard baits and particular hard baits for crappies and big bluegills, the right kind of hard baits. And he said, man, we talked to Rapala, who makes some of these things, and he said, you're moving the needle because we don't get it anywhere else. When we see these spikes and say, you guys are the guys doing this, and you're getting emails in, I tried this. I couldn't believe you could catch bluegills on something like this the way you did. I tried it. It's unbelievable. And so it's worked. But the level of interest in panfish, and I fished all over the world for all kinds of. I can't wait till next week to go do some crappie fishing and some bluegill fishing. I got a lake that's got some of them 10-inch gills, and just some 14 possible 15-inch crappies, and they should be on the weed line. And I got all pumped up here, and people talk about that. And I'm ready.
Well, even with me, with the guide, I started out musky stuff, but I've transitioned over to fishing with families because, just the fact that panfish, you can get the kids bit, they get fish, they catch fish,
Yeah. Did you see how many people responded when I said, how many of you ate for rock bass? I was floored at how many people had referred to the rock bass, fish for rock bass and eat them. Kaner would be proud of that.
I know. We got a lot of rock bass, and for some reason, I don't think people eat them as much as they probably could.
The percentage-wise for that group, the percentage of people that ate rock bass.
A bunch of people, like 15 people raise their hand. Oh, they're good. They're just like a crappie.
And they're fun to catch.
Oh, they're a gas to catch. We got a lot of big ones in our lake. Boy, you go up to Leech Lake and Gull Lake. I mean, it's a Pelican Lake. You can't even believe it. Lots of pounders, fabulous.
Catch them and they fight.
Yeah, they roll. They got care. We got to do more. We got to go and visit more editorial on rock bass, especially cooking them. Yeah. We got to do a section on cooking rock bass.
Well, down south, I think they call them Google eyes or goggle eyes. They fish for them for eat.
Different names.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And up here, they're considered a lot of times a rough fish. In Wisconsin, there isn't even a limit on them, I don't think.
Yeah, there's the same thing in Minnesota. I think they put a limit on them now.
I don't know that, to tell you the truth, but I know we got quite a few of them. It's one thing today's day and age. We actually have such a good equipment to go find fish. I think a lot more anglers are successful. Even the youth, they got high-end mapping programs. You got all these different things to help really feed or find the fish finding process inside imagery. And, a lot of people are very successful out on the water these days because of all those advancements in electronics and the utilization. And that's one thing is that anglers as a whole, you got to use it to your full potential, by the way. You can do it any way you want to. Fishing, that's one thing cool about fishing. You can make it as hard or as simple or fun. If you want it to be competitive, you can go out with a cane pole on the dock with the kids and have a a good time. That's and still,
that's the beauty of it.
It's a fabulous sport. Yeah,
spend $10 or you can spend $100,000. Depending on what way you want to do.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I still don't mind even fishing off the dock every once in a while.
Well, we're talking about all this stuff. You mentioned the improvements and stuff. I think the biggest improvement is people worry about they have to have the electronics and stuff. No. Just the mapping alone now.
I was just going to say that.
Unreal.
I was going to say that. I was going to mention that, and I forgot it. You just saw I think mapping is put people on more fish than forward-facing sonar. The people that think it's a threatening thing or anything. Nothing got more people on fish in the right spots than a Lake Master map ship. It is astounding what that did. To put people in the right place and stay at the right depth to catch fish on any. It's an amazing tool.
In the last 20 years, I don't think anything, that's the most revolutionary tool in angling. And everybody can say about the side imagery and underwater cameras and forward-facing sonar, everything is built off the map. If you don't have that map, all that other equipment goes away pretty quick. I mean, as far as your ability to move around really quickly and find fish, and even today, you're mapping 2D sonar. I can run down the lake going 20, 30 to 50 miles an hour, and I can tell what the bottom is. Yeah, you still keep that 2D, that old analog 2D sonar is a very, very valuable piece of equipment if you know how to use it correctly.
Well, the one thing I tell people, a lot of people on vacation and stuff, is that the best $26 you can spend is put that One Boat Network app on your phone. It has all the DX series maps, and you can sit there. How many times I've sat there in my chair at home and pulled up a map that says, okay, I'm on GPS waypoint there and there, to go out and check them out and catch fish.
Exactly. It's an amazing tool. Onyx Fishing is also advancing. They're taking a lot of that combination to making that just a little bit easier. Onyx is moving the needle. and a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a difference. Were they actually sharing a lot of really valuable information like data? I know for the guys in Wisconsin, because it was harder to find the data on given bodies of water, and they got that information on that Onyx Fish app, where you can go not only that, but the public accesses, private lands, all these other attributes, not only fish species, whatever, depth, of not only past
and
depth
current results.
and current, so it's a lot of really fabulous information and relatively logical on how to gather information, but you get a tremendous amount of information really super quickly. You know,
one thing I wanted to ask you guys, talk to you guys a little bit about bass fishing too. And, we talk about walleye fishing, pan fishing, and everything else. And, myself and Ken Melinder started a new Northland Bassin podcast to try to make the people aware that there's another species of fish out there. I know you fish bass tournaments way back when.
And then we did smallmouth tournaments for many years together as a family. We loved them. We loved them in a window of time. I loved it. I loved it. Love doing it.
Nothing out there I don't think you can catch short of panfish. You can have more action and have more fun either.
No.
Especially if you got the right lakes where the habitat and you got a lot of fish to deal with. Yeah. And there's a lot of lakes like that.
I like fishing for anything. That's what they, we go in here and what's your favorite species? Well, muskies or smallmouth bass. And I go, no. I always like my favorite species. Let's go for the ones that are biting. Let's go for these. What is that? Is that walleye? Is that carp? Is it cats?
Let's
go for
I
those.
love it all. It's all got a place, man.
And you're always
trying
to learn.
Even the rock bass got a place.
You're always trying to learn.
The rock bass in my world have elevated a spot up for being. I'm pushing the rock bass up a notch.
One of the bass pros, Sean Grigsby, one time said on my radio show, he says, fishing is a learning tool. You're learning all the time. He says, you're never going to be the best angler out there. You're never going to be the worst. But if you're learning something every time you go out, you're having fun.
It's a good day.
Yeah.
It's a good day.
You bet. A lot of great stuff there. And hopefully one of these days you get to go fishing.
It's been a while, bro. I'd like to do it in the Hayward area.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of your home territory for a few years there, wasn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
I know you fished Grindstone, Coudray. Coudray is pretty good. Ground is pretty good, but I think Grindstone is probably the number one.
To me, it is. To me, it is.
But Al, I want to take time here. I want to thank you greatly for taking the time here with us, and James too.
It's always a pleasure whenever we're over.
I can remember going way back when you guys were coming up here and staying at Highlands and running around filming, and you were still filming with 16 millimeter film at that point. Yeah. We're dating ourselves here, I guess.
That's a scary thought. I know.
Well, thank you guys for taking the time here. It's interesting.
Okay, good as usual. God bless, and we'll be talking to you later.
Thank you. Well, Ken, it's always interesting listening to other people out there. We try to throw in something from any guide or pro angler or anybody we can on here because, there is no such thing as everybody knows everything about fishing. I think one of the big bass guns from down south one time said on my radio show, said, you're never going to be the best fisherman out there, and you're never going to be the worst fisherman. But if you're learning stuff all the time and you're having fun, you're winning. So, it was Sean Grigsby said that. So it was kind of an interesting thing, but it's true. You're never going to be the best guy out there because every time you think you know everything, the fish are going to do something different on you.
Yeah. Versatility is pretty important to be competitive nowadays because all the guys on the bass tour, I don't care what circuit, they're capable of winning any tournament on any lake at any given time. For me, it's having a few days on the water and the decision making that I have to make during the course of a 2 or 3 day tournament. That's my downfall. My mind gets going so fast, and I don't settle down and just fish.
Well, anytime you're out there fishing, you're always engaged trying to figure out what to try next, what to do, unless you're on a bite where anything works. But that doesn't happen often. But, you're always trying to figure out a different thing, what's going to work. You're creating or solving a problem, basically. It's not a problem catching fish, but you're solving a solution to something.
Yeah. In the past, I spent a lot of time on the Mississippi River, and so very challenging. The ecosystems are unbelievable. They're pretty diverse. You can have everything you want to fish. But the problem is the flow, the current. Is it dropping or is it filling? Barometric pressure. all that makes effect, is it a good frog day or is it a current day, on the smallies? Are the smallies feeding up, or are they on the down current side of the sand breaks, or are they on a wing dam? There's so many choices to make, and basically it comes down, you have to try to fish your strengths and try to find the water that capitalizes on your strengths. If that happens, you'll do well, but it doesn't always happen. So you have to be versatile and in different baits. So when I started out in the club in '89, every year I chose, this year it's going to be nothing but plastics. That's all I fished all summer. I don't care what lake it was on. And then the next year was probably jigs. And then the next year was hard baits, that covered everything from topwaters down. And, some of the guys, they would spend the first half hour topwater, and I don't care what lake or what time of day. And they were always competitive because I got 2 or 3 good ones.
Yeah.
So then they had the rest of the day just to get the rest of their fish.
Well, and you said, you got so many different situations out there. If we're sitting here in the wintertime and we want to start trying to plan maybe some lakes to go fish, there's a ton of information out there on lakes. And when it comes to bass, we talk about fishing up in north here for bass, but, it's always been the walleyes, the crappies, the muskies, and this stuff. But, I maintain that some of the best fishing we have up here is the bass fishing. It's getting more popular, but it's still some of the best fishing as far as just catching a bunch of fish.
Yeah, catch and release and the diversity of where you're going to put your bait is actually really fun and challenging at times too.
But just so many lakes. I mean, not every lake has muskies, not every lake has walleyes in it, but almost every lake's got bass in it, largemouth or smallmouth. So where do you start if you're trying to figure out some lakes to go to? And even if you're staying on one lake up here, when I used to run the resort, I used to tell people that, if you're bringing your boat up here, it's got wheels underneath it. So if they're not going on the lake we're on here, there's a lake down the road that might be going. So you go. So where do you start? I mean, I know the Wisconsin DNR has lake books out, and they've got a bunch of information you can find. And then there's a whole bunch of things, Onyx Fish. You got some other things. What did you say?
CMAP is good.
Yeah, and there was other
Navionics, and then Omnia Fishing, a tackle facility that has a lot of information in regards to, if you're going to go to this lake this time of year, here's a list of suggested baits that you should probably bring with.
There's just so much information out there for you, and then once you figure out you want to maybe try Lake X or one of these lakes, in lake maps you can go. I know on my phone, on your phone, you've got Navionics on there.
And CMAP, yeah.
And CMAP. On mine, I've got Navionics, but I've also got Humminbird, and they got the One Boat Network app, which you could put on there even if you don't have Humminbird. And it's not expensive. I think it's $26 a year, but it's got all their high-resolution maps for all of North America in it. You just download sections that you want to fish. You can sit there, and I've done this. I mean, you could sit there in your recliner and pull up a lake and look at the map and say, let's see, there's going to be a good spot right there, and there's going to be a good spot.
Market,
and you find those flats, and you can find those points, and you find the creeks and feeder streets coming in, and all the different things, because let's face it, the old rule that 90% of the fish are going to be in 10% of the water, is pretty much true.
That is true.
Anyway, we need to talk about some of our sponsors out there. I mean, if you're coming to the Hayward area here, Hayward has got a lot of stuff. We're based out of Hayward here, and Hayward has just about got anything you might want for the outdoors. We've got a big national forest, the Chequamegon National Forest, right there just outside of Hayward. You got miles and miles and miles of ski trails, snowmobile trails, ATV trails. We got, I don't know how many 100 lakes we've got in the area and how many thousands of acres of water, but it's a lot.
There's even quite a few walk-in lakes in the Chequamegon. You can just take your paddleboard. It wouldn't be hard to get out there with a rod and a paddleboard, and you could even catch some nice trout on some of them.
Well, not just trout, but there's also some lakes that I know people get into that got some good bass and got some good bluegills and stuff in them too. And they're walk-in lakes, or you got to sneak into them, through the forest. I mean,
yeah, they snowmobile in and then walk to them off the trails and I've seen some pictures of some pretty big bluegills.
Yeah, and we got plenty of lodging up here in the area. You could haywardlakes.com or the Hayward Area Chamber.com. You got a bunch of different information there. The Hayward Chamber of Commerce and the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau. They'll help you out with trying to figure out where to go. They also have a visitor guide if you get a hold of it at haywardlakes.com. They've got a really nice book they put out every year. It's a visitor guide, tells you all the different lodging, the fishing guides, different lakes in the area, and it's a lot of good information there, plus all the stuff that's on the internet and on my website at wnlradio.com. I mean, I got a bunch of stuff there too. So, Hayward is a great area because there's just such a diverse area to get into as far as your outdoor activities.
And the calendar of events that the chamber supports and puts on, I don't think there's another town that can beat it.
No,
I was really surprised, when I first moved here, on the activities that they sponsor and put together.
The events are first-rate events. Every event is Berkey and the Fat Tire Bike Race. All of the events are really run and organized exceptionally well. So
when the Berkey's coming up,
as we're sitting here talking out in my shop where I got to get a whole lot of stuff done between now and spring to get ready for fishing. I haven't been spending any time ice fishing. I got 10,000 things to get done. But you got any other tips as far as figuring out making plans to head a lake up and stuff in the spring?
Well, going old school, I used to always print DNR maps and I'd highlight them different colors, and then I just concentrate. Okay, water temps this, I'm going to fish green. Water temps this, I'm going to fish orange. Water temps this, I'm going to fish, blue.
Yeah.
But now it's depth contours that you can color code them any color you want for each season. So I go by the medium depth of the lake. And then watercolor. It gives you an indication of how much weeds are going to be in the lake. And you can spend a lot of time watching videos. There's always videos of something going on in the lake. So you can see whether or not it has softwoods or hardwoods. Hardwoods can be clay banks and softwoods can be sandbanks. And then you try to look for rock croppings and so I try to find a map that gives me the substrate, whether it's sand to muck and rock and pea gravel and rubble.
Well, not all of the maps, or not all of the lakes are in high definition mapping available out there. So you'll find a lot of little puddles of spawns that are really good largemouth fishing, but they won't be mapped. It'll be up to you to go out. Most of the electronics now has the ability to create maps, so you can go out and map that little lake if you want to. As we wrap up here, let's talk a little bit about spring smallmouth. We talked about largemouth, and I think we're talking about spring smallmouth location. That's usually different than largemouth by quite a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, they like harder bottom. Even just straight sand, they'll be on straight sand.
Yeah.
So if you have a lot of sand in the lake, look where the shells and the seashells are and stuff like that, and then just look for a depth change. All it takes is 6 inches, and the smallies will get up and cruise that break edge on the sand.
Well, a lot of people think that smallmouth, you got to have the rocks there. It's got to be rocks. And generally, I have done really good on rock bars that are nothing but a bunch of boulders and stuff. But usually, it gets better when you start mixing in some wood or some weeds to that too.
Yeah, most sand flats got some sort of weeds that creates oxygen.
Yeah, and one tip too, if you're looking for the biggest smallmouth, once they get past the spawn, I think Jim Lindner once said, look for the biggest boulders in the lake. You could probably find the biggest fish.
Yeah, Mille Lacs is a prime example of that. A lot of tournaments won, they just come back to that same boulder, and big fish they like vertical structure.
Yeah, I know. And, whether you're fishing the flowage or one of the clear natural lakes or reservoir up here, up north, the one thing about smallmouth is you catch pre-spawn smallmouth, they're almost always going to be in packs or groups. And you catch one, there's going to be more than one there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jerk bait is a great bait to find them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a few years ago, I was going to fish a spot on the Chippewa flowage on opening day, the first weekend in May, and I was going to fish that, and I decided, no, I'm not going to, because the wind is going to be just too atrocious to sit on that spot. And I found out later, one of my other friends, another guide, came in on it, and he caught like 50 smallmouth off in there, and they were all nice smallmouth, one after another. And the spot is no bigger than basically a double car garage. It's just a bunch of rocks and boulders with a bunch of wood in it and 10, 15 feet of water. And they were just in there thicker, and it's right next to a creek channel. And, if you're on reservoirs or flowages, that river channel or creek channel is a real important factor to be paying attention to, no matter what you're fishing for.
Yeah, it carries a lot of nutrients to the water column.
Well, I know there's a lot of stuff. Have you seen anything new coming out this year that really got your interest? I know there's getting to be more and more and more of those TPE plastic baits. That TPE plastic, the first one out there was Z-Man with that stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe not the first one, but that stuff, first of all, if you buy it, you don't mix it with your other plastic. Just put it in because it'll turn everything to goo. It'll react against each other. But the interesting thing, Bro Brosdahl pointed out to me on it was that it's very porous, and that's why it floats easier. Most of it floats, and it's very porous. And I know Northland makes baits with it now, and Z-Man does. Rapala's adding to their line of Crush City stuff with it. They've got some really cool baits there. It's not just the Ned rigs, it's some of the jerk minnows and some of the minnow baits you can do stuff with. But Bro pointed out one thing that he's using scent, and that scent, you actually, if you put a dab of scent down on the gunnel of your boat or something, and then squeeze that TPE bait and push it, it'll actually act like a sponge, and it'll suck that stuff right up. Where regular plastics, it just stakes to the outside edge, where the TPE, it gets right inside the bait and it stays there. So, and I've been using more scent, and I've always used fish scent. I don't believe it can hurt you. I think if anything, it's going to help you, but it's definitely not going to hurt. And what I found has actually been pretty good. There's a Procure stuff. Procure makes a bunch of stuff, and it's actually made from real bait stuff.
I'm a firm believer in crawdad oil, and there used to be a couple plants down in Louisiana. I'd have it shipped from what was this 100% pressed crawdad oil. I throw a lot of jigs though too, especially I still even throw living rubber. It's once you put the crawdad oil in, it's a lot more buoyant in the water, and I used to even string it through worms. And then now technology has gone pretty fast in the last year in regards to these spider plastics, with all the tentacles. I mean, so almost every company's got it on board now, and the elite guys are kicking butt on it, here and there on some of the lakes. So that bait's going to get really popular this summer. So
yeah, it's got the little tentacles, look like little strands of whatever it is sticking out of it, so it looks like a fuzzy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that, and there's all kinds of different shapes on that, and there's several companies that are making it that way too now.
Yeah. Last year there was only, a few companies, but most of them were Japanese company, and now there's U.S. companies that are. Well,
anytime you've got appendages on a plastic bait or a soft plastic bait, it's going to be moving down there in the water. I mean, that's one of the keys. I'm crappie fishing or bluegill fishing. I absolutely want a plastic that has a long, skinny tail or something on it, because even if you stop it there, that little tail is sitting there wiggling back and forth, and the fish see that. I mean, they key in on that stuff.
So, going old school, Guido Hibden and his son, they come out with the Guido bug.
I remember that.
Yeah. It was a hand-poured crawdad that had really long appendages on it. And if you put that on a stand-up jig, well, back then they didn't have as many options, and if you just dragged along, I think create a lot of action, you just get hammered.
Well, another bait that was out for a long time was brush hog, baby brush hog and a brush hog. There's a lot of appendages on that are moving around all the time, and I've caught a lot of bass on those, but now I see...
That's one of my go-to baits.
But there's a whole bunch of companies out there that are making them now, almost identical copies, and they call them all kinds of different things that sound like brush hog, but, so really, sometimes there's nothing new, but then again, there's some new stuff once in a while. And one thing I've noticed this year is there's getting to be some really nice rods coming out there, too. I mean, I picked up a couple of rods here for pan fishing, some light action rods from 13 Fishing from Rapala, and incredibly sensitive rods, and they're $80 rods. They're not all that expensive.
Yeah, so with my experience working retail, I find that a lot of people break rods, and I'll give you a few pointers. So the rods are becoming tighter wrapped, lighter, less product there to hold up. If you keep your rod below 10 o'clock when you're lifting a 2 or even a 4 pound fish into the boat, it's going to hold up. It's not usually going to break. But if you start lifting them between 10 and 12, they're going to break. And they usually break, about 8 to a foot down the line. Depends upon the action. So I had a lot of customers come in with, hey, I broke your rod there, and, what can I do about it? Well, nowadays you have to set up accounts with the companies, for warranties. And so I started doing a lot of investigating and, what kind of rod can I recommend to consumers that are not going to break, that'll hand up with a lot more abuse and even, vicious boat rides. And for $120 to be more efficient, are technique specific for bass rods. They're awesome. I had showed one guy to a tackle warehouse Phoenix tournament guy down in Grand Lake, Oklahoma, and he says, I want to buy that from you. I let him borrow it for a week until I fish nationals down there, and he says, I want to buy them from you. And he throws a lot of football heads. And then for the lightest and most sensitive, nothing can be beat the Trica. I don't care if you spend $600-$700 on other rods.
Oh, that is the epitome of high tech with a rod right there.
They are 100% carbon wrapped. Everything they use top of the line Fuji guides, and I have put those rods to abuse that I thought were going to break, and they never broke.
Yeah, no. The more you spend on a rod, the better it's going to get as far as its sensitivity and everything else. But there's a point there. I mean, not everybody's going to buy a $300-$400 rod. So if you're looking at rods, I mean, as you get better and better and more involved with bass fishing or any type of fishing, you want better equipment sometimes. But for people that are maybe just getting into it, there's a whole lot of selections of rods out there that are, say, $200 and less.
Yeah, like Be More Fishing. I mean, I've got like 10 of them in my boat, and they're on the deck all the time.
Yeah, it's just a whole lot of stuff. I'm seeing more new baits coming out this year, more different, especially shapes and plastics. There seems to be more stuff coming out. I know Rapala has added, like I mentioned before, added several things to the Crush City line. I mean, just about every Berkeley out there in Pure Fishing has added a bunch of different baits out there. So it's never ending, I guess, Ken. And sometimes it makes a difference. I mean, you throw something that the fish haven't seen. I mean, it makes a difference because I've seen before with different species of fish where you catch a lot of them on one particular bait, then all of a sudden they don't want to bite that bait. I mean, it's just that simple. They don't want nothing to do with it after they've seen their buddies get caught on it or they've been caught on it.
There is certain weather patterns and seasons that really create an algae bloom where the colors will matter more. Basically, it's all you need is 3 colors of any bait. Tree worms, tree crankbaits, you don't need 10 like they make. With the exception, though, you might need some high contrasting colors if there's a lot of algae bloom. There had been a couple years where the water temp got really warm in June, algae bloom went gangbusters, and if you weren't throwing bubble gum back in the day, you weren't placing.
Yeah.
And that's on certain lakes, and it's hard to explain. It's kind of like watered down pea soup.
Yeah.
If it gets worse than that, a lot of metal flake in your bait.
Yeah. Well, sometimes all of that makes a difference, but I think the biggest single thing that I could tell people out there is that no matter what you throw out there or a color combination or type of bait, if you're not fishing where the fish are, you're not going to catch fish. So the biggest single thing is to get your skills down as far as find the spots, the type of areas the fish are going to be in. Because, it's like some people squawk about forward-facing sonar. Say it's a cheater box and everything else. If you put it in the hands of a very good fisherman, he'll get better because he knows where to start looking for fish. You put it in the hands of somebody that doesn't know where to find the fish, all they're going to do is drive around all day long, scoping and looking and trying to find the fish. But if you know where they're going to be, you can zero in on them pretty quick.
Well, I'm guilty on becoming a scoping maniac now, but not for catching fish. It's for learning the environment.
Yeah.
So you can figure out where all the little minnows are, where the medium-sized minnows are, where the bigger minnows are. You can find activity in the weeds. You can go like 3 miles per hour and just cover a lot of water. Yeah. And then I'll come back the next day and start casting to catch those fish. But I don't catch a lot of fish watching them bite my bait.
No, but the only one that I do that with more is like crappies, or trying to follow schools of crappies around.
Yeah, that's not fishing, that's catching.
I know.
Go hunting and then start catching.
Anyway, Ken, we're wrapping up here. We're about out of time here. And if people want more information on what we're doing here, you can go to my website at wnoradio.com. We put the podcast up on Podbean. It's northlandbassin.podbean.com. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's everywhere out there, so you can listen to it. But anybody that's got any questions or anything, if you go to our podcast site, and that's northlandbassin.podbean.com. If you go to that or go to our website at wnoradio.com, you can get to that podcast site. You can leave comments or questions. I'd be happy to answer questions on people or some lakes to go to or what they want to do up here.
Yeah, if you want information on a specific lake that you're coming up to the Hayward area, even all the way down, past Rice Lake and stuff, I mean, you and I have traveled on a lot of these lakes like multiple times every summer, so we can definitely give you some pointers.
You bet. Again, there are lots of different things to do up here in the area, and stop by all the businesses that sponsor my radio show. That radio show has been out there for over 35 years, Ken.
Yeah, it's a long time.
So anyway, we're out of time, folks. I hope you enjoyed the podcast here, and if you get a chance to get up here in the northern part of Wisconsin or northern Minnesota or northern Michigan, anywhere, even out in the Dakotas, it's fantastic bass fishing up here for people, especially for these trophy smallmouth.
Yeah, and I'm actually looking forward to the Olympics. After that, then it's playing with tackle till ice out.
You bet. Okay, well, thanks a lot, Ken, and folks, thanks for listening to us here.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Thank you, John.
Well, folks, that about wraps up this edition of the Northland Bassin Podcast. If you'd like more information on the Hayward, Wisconsin area, check out the Wisconsin Northland Outdoors Radio Show on our other podcast channel, wnoradio.podbean.com, or for even more information on the web at haywardlakes.com or haywardareachamber.com. Thanks for listening, and watch for our next Northland Bassin Podcast. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please like and subscribe to the channel.